Hello, Harris County. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and welcome to Common Threads, back for our Centennial celebration highlighting the 1950s here in the United States. Common Threads is a national nonprofit that provides children and families cooking and nutrition education to encourage healthy habits that contribute to wellness. Common Threads aspires to build communities that embrace healthy cooking, healthy eating, and celebration of culture. We will be posting all of the recipe links tonight, as well as a quick survey that really helps Common Threads to understand the community to serve you better, so we really encourage you to fill this out. During the 1950s, comfort and convenience foods were in. Although not the healthiest, some staples included chicken a la king, meatloaf, Jell-O salad, and casseroles, like tuna and green bean casseroles. Fun fact, created in 1955 by Campbell's as a way to sell more cream of mushroom soup, green bean casserole quickly caught on as a quintessential Thanksgiving and dinner party side dish. In many ways, it's the ultimate 50s dish. It's a casserole made with nothing but canned green beans and canned cream of mushroom soup, topped with canned fried onions. Tonight, Chef Dubraska will take us into her kitchen to create healthier versions of tuna noodle casserole and meatloaf, meatballs on English muffins. These are some kid-approved recipes and so much fun to make with your kids. Chef will also be talking about how she taught her children to love and cook food from an early age, sharing some clever ideas to pass the love of cooking onto your children. Speaking of kids, Chef Dubraska is a mother of 4 children and knows a thing or two about making healthy meals for a family on a budget. She's traveled all over the world and has experienced many different cultures through cooking and food. Her passion is educating on healthful cooking and spreading joy and cheerfulness through food. I want to encourage you throughout the presentation to post your questions in the comments section as you think of them. Chef Dubraska will answer your questions throughout the program as she is able, and then again after the demonstration if time allows. And don't forget to fill out that quick survey. The link will be in the comments. This feedback is very helpful and very appreciated by Common Threads. Without further ado, please welcome Chef Dubraska from Common Threads. Hello, Chef Dubraska.
How are you, dear? It's so good to be back with you all. Now celebrating the 1950s and cooking these quintessential dishes that really became a staple, and we, even if they are a little processed, we still love them and we like to cook them. We're gonna give them a healthier spin to them, and I'm gonna give you some ideas on how to include your kids in the preparation of these meals, and they are so simple. So without further ado, let's show our viewers the recipe for the tuna noodle casserole first. Yes. So we have some either Parmesan or mozzarella cheese to top the casserole. Little bit. Can we open the camera on the stove, please, so we can kind of have a better view of everything here in the kitchen? Let's see. We need some breadcrumbs, and we're going to talk about breadcrumbs also a little bit during the show. What are some alternatives that I use that are a little bit maybe healthier, some that are gluten-free, since so many people have allergies these days, and we have a growing community also of people who are trying to avoid gluten. So we have also gluten-free pasta that we can do our noodle casserole. Okay, it looks like our camera is gone. Let me see if we can get that connected. Just a moment. Okay, let's give a moment and see if the camera will work. Well, it says that it has been blocked, the camera. So let's use the computer like we've been doing in the previous broadcast. So we will have to do with our handy dandy laptop. Anyhow, so we have 2 cups of canned vegetables of our choice. We can use frozen peas instead of a canned peas. I think they have better taste and they're so easy to find. Yes, we're gonna use the Campbell soup, but there are, different options of that soup. We can have a lower sodium version, or even if we use the full version, we can reduce the amount of salt in the water where we boil the pasta, or we just hold all together. We don't use any salt in this recipe. We're gonna add some veggies to the recipe. Yes, we're gonna add some nice onions. We're gonna chop them fresh, so that will add some flavor. I'm gonna add some garlic because, well, we build flavors when we add other things. And onions and garlic are also so delicious, and they just add tons of flavor. And we're gonna add one stalk of celery to our original recipe from Common Threads. We're gonna have our 2 cans of tuna right here, and I chose in water. Yeah, I know that the oil gives a little bit of flavor, but the whole idea is to use something that is healthier, and maybe to add the fat and the cheese and not on oil. So let's start by chopping those onions. See, we can do that. Yep. Remember, we have talked about stabilizing our vegetables. So we're gonna go and cut the onion in half so it can be flat. Remember to always keep the end or the root of the onion. That will keep all the layers of the onion intact. It will be easier to peel that onion and a lot easier to get those perfect little squares. So our bear claw, and we make lines along the way. And then we cut and make a curve transversal, and then we go all the way. And we chop. And we get these beautiful little dice. So some people call it mince onions. Well, yeah, if they are tiny, tiny, you can call them mince. Otherwise, we're dicing this onion. And the 1950s, well, that is a great decade. That's the decade of recovery from World War II. We had 2 presidents during that decade. We have Dwight Eisenhower, and we had Elvis Presley being the king of rock and roll in the mid-50s. But one of the facts that really caught my attention of the 1950s is the invention of the TV, the color TV, 1951. And by the 1950s, there were 8 million TVs in the American households. No wonder during the 1950s, we got that famous and infamous TV dinners created by Swansons. So, yes, I guess people needed something to eat really quickly so they could watch all those TV shows. It's funny how things go hand in hand. When you have an invention, something else also happens along the way. Probably not the healthiest thing, but we'll have to do with that. So let's get our skillet warming up, and we're gonna just put a little bit of olive oil, just a tiny touch. We don't need. We're using a non-stick pan, so you don't need a lot of oil in that. We're gonna sweat our onions, and we're gonna go back to our cutting board and chop some garlic and chop some celery. That will give tons of flavor to this casserole. It's gonna be so yummy. Another thing that I was gonna say, yes, we're gonna use cream of mushroom, but we can always add real fresh mushrooms to this casserole. So I did get some mushrooms in here, and you know, I always say that I'm the queen of the contraband, and that is so important when you have children, because children always say, I don't want vegetables, I don't like vegetables. But if they cannot see them, you can probably introduce all those veggies. And that's probably one of the best tools that I discovered with my own children. They might not like to see those big good old mushrooms in there, but if they are chopped, finally means they will eat them, and they don't know any better. They will say, "Ooh, that tastes meaty, Mom." So I highly recommend that you use the same technique and pass some contraband to your kids by cooking meals with additional vegetables without them knowing. So again, the bear claw, and then we're gonna rock motion on that knife. And over here is already smelling delicious. So look at this, man. And we always talk about in these classes for the past months that we've been meeting here about the use of spices. They also add a lot of flavor to your dishes, and they don't add a ton of calories. So we have here, you can see, we're sweating that, and it's smelling very delicious here. I wish we have some smell-o-vision or some kind of way to let you guys inside my kitchen. So talking about spices, I'm gonna add, because it just adds flavor, I'm gonna add 2 bay leaves to that, and it just makes it yummier. And I'm gonna add black pepper, always makes it better. We are not adding any salt at this point, because that cream of mushroom has tons of sodium, tons of salt, so we are not gonna go there. I have here some mushrooms, some fresh ones, and I'm gonna chop them. And you know, mushrooms, we should clean them with, these are already have been cleaned, but we should clean them with a little paper towel, a rag. If you put water on them, they will absorb the water, and the color will turn black, and they won't look very appetizing. So we want them dry. And look, we chop them really small, so your kids cannot see them. My kids, thankfully, they like them, but I know that sometimes mushrooms are an acquired taste. So another interesting fact from the 1950s is that the rush that started in the 50s for the space program between the U.S. and Russia. Well, at that time is the Soviet Union. I think all those issues with communism probably started then. The Cold War, everything after World War II changed the relationship with many countries. Let's add the mushrooms to our pan. Let's see how they look. Okay, there you go. You know, you can add as little or as much as you want. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. Another interesting fact of that decade is how many processed meals came out, and they just, not only the Campbell soups became more popular, but or the TV dinners, but also the cake mixes became super popular. All some fun desserts from that decade are the upside down pineapple cake, the baked Alaska, and all those funky yellow molds. Some of them sweet, some of them savory. They don't look very appetizing, but some of them were part of the decade. Another one is that Ambrosia Salad with marshmallows. It just feels like that decade was the decade of a lot of creativity with convenience foods. They all look like express meals to me. Some of them are very delicious, and we still make them. Like this one, the tuna noodle casserole. I have here my can of Campbell's. I'm gonna also open the tuna fish. Here is my handy dandy can opener. And it will be a good idea if we drain the water from this tuna. It just has too much salt that we really do not need. So I'm gonna do so right now. I'm gonna very carefully open the can. We don't want to cut ourselves with a piece of tin. We have here one can. A second can here. And remember, if you are trying to do this for dinner at home, it's good that you set the water on the stove and boil it just to get started. Since we are here doing the broadcast, I already boiled my pasta. It's parboiled. It's ready to go. Here, there you go. This one was better. So again, tuna, for those who are just joining us, tuna noodle casserole. We just put 2 cans of tuna. We're gonna add a can of cream of mushroom. Only one goes a long way. And yes, we might need to add some water to that, some kind of liquid. We can either add water or, like I do, I usually add a little bit of milk. So why? Well, we add a little bit of low-fat milk. It just makes it nice and creamy. And again, a little extra protein for our children, a little bit more of calcium in there, and a little bit more flavor. Let's go back to the spices. I like to add just a touch, little bit of thyme. So little bit, not much. We already have 2 bay leaves there. We're also gonna add 1 cup of green peas. I'm using the frozen ones. They're absolutely sweet and beautiful. Look how delicious. I think it looks fabulous. Let me get a spoon. So we don't waste anything from that can. So basically 1 can of cream of mushroom and the same amount in milk or in water. Then let me trash this. What do you think, guys? Isn't it looking nice? So we're gonna use a little bit of parsley at the end to decorate, and yes, we're gonna put some cheese because, well, everything with cheese is better, you know. I love cheese. I think I can give up almost anything, but I cannot give up cheese. It's too hard. I love it. And look how creamy it is now. I think it looks fabulous. So maybe we can taste it. We haven't added any salt because that soup has plenty of salt. So let's see. It is very good. Doesn't need anything. Maybe a little bit more black pepper. Because, well, black pepper is delicious. And I have here a little bit of parsley. And we're going to add a little bit of parsley to the sauce, but also a little bit of parsley when we plate it or at the end before we stick it in the oven. We're going to. And believe it or not, I like this casserole without putting it in the oven. When you put it in the oven, sometimes it gets clumped up. I kind of like to feel the creaminess of the sauce, but it's a matter of taste. If you don't have time and you're in a hurry and you don't want to stick it in the oven, that's absolutely fine. You can just serve it just like it is. And I'm going to give you some ideas how to maybe make individual and have them ready, individual cups of tuna noodle casserole. With that, at least you know that you are you're portioning things the correct way. You know that you're not serving more than you need to. And you can save these small meals for later. You will have some for tonight, but you can also freeze them. All of these dishes freeze really well. So this sauce is ready. Remember, this is going to finish cooking in the oven. Let's assemble it. So I have here my pasta. I have whole wheat pasta. And remember, when we talk about whole wheat, it means whole wheat. So when we read the labels, which is very important, it must say whole wheat. If any label said enriched flour, well, that is not whole wheat. That has bromated, bleach, enriched flour. So this is whole wheat, 100%. Whole grain. It must say whole grain. So let's add the pasta to our sauce. Let's turn it off. And I know the recipe calls for adding a whole pound of pasta. I tried the recipe earlier, and I think the sauce is enough to make it nice and gooey and delicious. It makes enough for probably about 10 ounces of pasta, not the whole thing. Otherwise, it will absorb all the sauce, and then you won't have a nice creamy casserole. You will have more noodles. So I do like to feel the tuna and all the deliciousness of the vegetables. So let's make sure that we don't use it. I'm going to reserve this little bit of pasta so we can maybe use also that for the meatballs. We can serve meatballs with pasta, but also we can serve meatballs in that sub. Let's see. We have this ready to rock and roll with the king of the 50s, the King Elvis Presley. Look, we can use these beautiful ramekins, and that will portion a nice personal size casserole. You don't have to cut it. You don't have to deal with anything. You just serve that beautiful, all that goodness in one ramekin. So we have one here. But if you don't have ramekins, well, we don't have to worry about. You know what we can do? We can put it in a regular good old casserole. like it has been done forever and ever. So let me move this thing and get one here and show you. So I'm gonna put it and just all in the pan. Isn't that good? Look how beautiful. Creamy. It looks so luscious and rich. And it has that green color in it. It makes it look fresh. And it is okay to have once in a while, you know, something that comes from a can. What I don't like is everything from a can. You know, we do have here canned tuna, and we have here the soup, but also we have here fresh vegetables. We have our peas, we have onions, we have celery, we have garlic. What else do we have here? A little bit of parsley, some milk. So it's not all full process, it's half process. Let's put this in the oven and then I'll show you later how it looks. Oh, we forgot, we can put in here some breadcrumbs. And let's talk about breadcrumbs, because that's one of the things that I always tell people, why do you all pay so much money for these breadcrumbs? You know, I do have them because I wanted to show them to you, but I wanted to show you an alternative to breadcrumbs. And a good alternative to breadcrumbs is oats. I use my oatmeal for so many recipes, to make pancakes, to make cakes and muffins, but I also use them as a coating for my baked chicken nuggets for my children. I use them as breadcrumbs. I use them to thicken or to help bind a meatloaf or meatballs. Like today, I'm gonna use probably a little bit. So that's what I put on mine. Also, another gluten-free option will be ground cornflakes, good old cornflakes, gluten-free cornflakes, and they give you that, you know, crispiness, and they're a lot cheaper than that box of breadcrumbs, and they do the job perfectly. Another thing, we're gonna put some cheese in that. And yes, we can use the cheese from the bottle, but you know that when you buy this cheese, you're buying this cheese with anti-caking agents. So I want to teach you something and pass some good information. If you buy a little piece, a little block of Parmesan cheese or Pecorino Romano, or even an Asiago cheese, one of those cheeses that are, you know, old and mature cheeses, they are full of flavor, and you just have to grate them yourself. And then voila, you are not having any additional ingredients that are not good for you. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of this one in here. And yes, I do have that powdery thing at home because sometimes, you know, my kids want that thing instead of the real thing. But, you know, just some food for thought. And we're going to put a little bit more parsley, and look how pretty this thing looks like. Let's go down. Look how beautiful. Isn't it nice? Let's see. I think you can see it now. Then we have a little bit here on our individual casserole, a little bit of Parmesan cheese on our individual, and a little bit of that cornflakes mixture. And we're gonna put this in the oven. And I'll be back in a moment. Okay, sanitation. I need to go and wash my hands. Remember, when we cook, we need to be aware of good healthy practices, and one of those very important when we're cooking is to sanitize, to clean our surfaces, to change the cutting boards, something that we need to teach our children from day one if they're going to help us in the kitchen, is to make sure that they wash their hands really well, that they, every time mama or whoever is cooking is using raw ingredients, that cutting board needs to be changed. So I cannot stress enough on those things, and my kids probably, I drove them crazy as little kids, trying to teach them that those are the way that we do things at home. So let me wash my hands, change the cutting board, and bring the meat so we can start with our next recipe. Can you please post that recipe, the one for the meat? There you go. Just keep it there and I'll be back. Yes, I'm back here. Let's get my meat. And it's so awesome to make meatballs because that's something that every kid likes. Kid, adult, there is no one who doesn't like meatballs, you know, and there is a version of meatballs almost in every culture. So the ingredients, we're going to have 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to put them here. We're having 1 egg as a binding agent, and we're going to use a little bit of my oatmeal flour that I just showed you, just a little bit. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. We can use dry parsley. We can use fresh parsley. I have fresh parsley here, and that's what I'm going to use. 1 onion, small one, finely chopped. So I have here, and I have some already chopped in here as well. We're going to use some canned tomatoes. I have here already crushed tomatoes. So that makes the whole recipe easier to make. And 1 pound of lean ground meat. So you can use beef, you can use a mixture of beef and lean pork, you can use a mixture of lean beef and turkey, which is what I am doing right now. I'm going to show you what I have here on my counter. So there you go. I have half and half beef and turkey, lean ones. I have some onions, and I'm going to chop the rest here as well. I'm going to save some of the onion for the sauce, and some of the onion will be for the meat inside. Yes, again, we're talking about the contraband. So for the sauce, I'm going to add some vegetables in the sauce. We're going to add some onions here. They're already they've been chopped. We're going to add parsley and some. So can we bring the camera bigger towards the, yes, thank you. Perfect. So we do have the meat here. I'm going to work on the garlic. Let's mince the garlic. I already put the onions and the parsley there. And you see, we're going to mince that. Now it's a lot easier to chop. Again, bear claw. And yes, sometimes if I want the garlic really tiny, I put a little bit of salt and I squished, and then I go again with a knife. But right now, you know, all of these things are going to be perfectly cooked in the oven. We're gonna roast them before we drop them in the sauce. So it's gonna give us some time to get some flavor in that sauce. Because, yeah, you know, tomatoes, they really need some time to develop the flavor. So here we have garlic, the meat, garlic goes in. Egg goes in. And let me wash my hands and sanitize a little bit here. Any questions? Yeah. Aha. Brett says, wow, that looks awesome. That looks, I mean, the tuna noodle casserole will be delicious. And Sonia said, it looks yummy. You love that idea. Yes, we can always add more veggies. And we always can change those breadcrumbs for something else. So I'm gonna add just a tiny touch of this. You know, we can measure it. It's always good to measure with a spoon so we know how much we're putting. I'm just gonna put a tiny bit, 1, 2 tablespoons. And besides, oatmeal is wonderful for you. So that's my little sense there. We're gonna add some black pepper. And, you know, be generous with the black pepper. Black pepper is delicious. And yes, we're going to add some salt, little bit, not much. Then remember, we're going to add some salt to our sauce as well. So that will make it quite delicious. So we're going to just work this and give it some flavor. I like to add to my meatballs also a little bit of dry herbs, maybe some oregano, maybe a mixture of Italian seasoning, something that doesn't have salt. So I think over here I have my Italian herbs mix somewhere around here. I placed that somewhere. Yes, it's here. Yeah. So let's put some of that. And obviously, if you want to add like powdered onions or powdered garlic, that is totally up to you. You want to add a little bit of paprika, that will be also awesome. You know, play with the recipe. This is just an idea. I always said, you know, you get inspired, but make it your own. Bring your culture into it. You know, if you're Mexican, well, maybe add some chiles to the sauce. Maybe add some chipotle. When I make Mexican meatballs, that's how I do it. Albóndigas, I add some chile chipotle in my sauce, and I think it's so delicious. So let's combine these together very nicely. Make sure that all the flavors are in there. If you want any other herb, like thyme or rosemary, you want to make them, if you want to make them Swedish, you can probably not use a red tomato sauce. Maybe you use a brown sauce. There are so many ways of making meatballs. Each culture has its own. In Venezuela, we also make albóndigas, and they are in just a hearty tomato sauce, and we add oregano. And we eat them with rice and beans. In the Middle East, they make some meatballs. They're called kafta, and they're made with tomatoes and potatoes. And I love those. And they put a little bit of pomegranate syrup in the in the sauce. So we have this ready. I'm gonna get a tray so we can make the balls, stick them in the oven, high temperature 425, so they roast. They look like they have been fried, but they have not been fried. You were saving that part of the process, and we can add maybe a little bit of fat in another area, maybe in the cheese on top, maybe a slice of mozzarella or any other cheese in that sandwich. You see, it's all about how we use the thing in the ingredients, how we maybe play with them and create even a healthy meal and a tasty one out of this without adding additional fat, without any fuss. So let's see. We have here our meat is done, and I have here this tray, and I love these trays with the seal pad. You can use also some paper, like parchment paper, or just a tray like this. I do this because it's easier to clean. And life gets complicated, I'm sure, and you might not have the time to scrub pots heavily. So if you use a seal pad, it makes life very, very easy. You can find them at any grocery store. They're wonderful for baking cookies as well. Just makes the baking more even. So look, real quick. But if you don't have time to make meatballs, another thing is you can make a flat thing here, the whole tray, thin, and then stick it in the oven. When it comes out, you cut little squares, and then you have the square. I'm not going to say square meatballs because balls are not square, but your square meat patties that you can use also in the sandwiches. This can be also the base for a good meatloaf. This has a lot of uses. This is a multi-purpose recipe. And it looks very yummy. So I think I need to hurry up here, you guys, because time is running. And we do want to see this finished and done. I need to also keep an eye on that tuna casserole. So I want to know from you viewers, what was your favorite meal from the 1950s? If you hear your parents saying, "Oh, I used to eat this when I was a kid," or even from your time, if you are part of the baby boomer generation. That's the baby boomer generation, the 1950s. Anyone has a recipe from that time? Well, some more facts about the 1950s is the Sputnik, is Roe versus Wade. We have Rosa Parks also. Your parents love chicken a la king. Oh, that's a good one too. And we had Rosa Parks refusing to sit in the back of the bus. I think that is a big one, eh? I'm sorry, it was not Roe versus Wade. The Board of Education. I think that's the one. I think a lot of movement came during that time, and a lot of changes. Oh, the polio vaccine also came out 1953. That's a good one. I think after World War, many things started to kind of going up. A lot of expansion in the U.S. I think the country needed to be modernized as well. Meatloaf from the 50s, I think, is one of those meals that, yeah, they were very popular during the 1950s. I think last decade, the 1940s, is when they started making them. Remember, women starting to go back to work because of their husbands being deployed in Europe. So, Ruth said Brown versus the Board of Education. Yes, yes. So we have that important Supreme Court ruling allowing desegregating school, which is a wonderful thing. I think we keep talking about all this tension in our country, and I think Brown versus the Board of Education was probably after a Hispanic also girl. There is not much knowledge about this. She also fought to be allowed to go to school and have the same rights. So I think it has been a struggle for many minorities in this country to gain equal rights. In this month, we have been bombarded with different issues, from the Asian community, and I guess is very sad. But yeah, this decade brought some good changes, and it's good to look at things in a positive way. We are moving forward. Thank God. So our meatballs are ready. Look how beautiful they are. And I'm gonna put them in the oven, high temperature, 425, and I'm gonna check on those in the tuna noodle casserole. But at first, I'm gonna put them, then wash my hands and check the casserole. And remember, we just need to sanitize everything. I'm taking this back to the sink. And yes, I'm back here. Let's get that tuna noodle casserole. It looks fabulous. I already took a look at it. So let me get my mittens. I'm gonna look at that. Yummy. And we have a baby individual one here. Doesn't it look delicious? I'm gonna put it in a plate and I'm gonna show you how it looks like. And look at that beautiful little plate. You see, now asparagus are in season and they are super delicious, beautiful, and inexpensive too. So, and I have some roasted little onions as well in this plate and some of that. And I'm gonna dig in. I'm gonna see. Look, oof, isn't that yummy? Come on, let's taste this. Cheesy and creamy. Oof, oof. Mmm, mmm, mmm. There you have it, an American classic made healthier. We had whole wheat pasta, but you can have any pasta that you want. We have some vegetables inside, some vegetables around. It looks presentable, it looks delicious. And if you don't want to bake it, like I said, you can serve it straight from the pan, creamy and gooey. So it's up to you. Let me move the big casserole out of the way and let's make the sauce. Let's prep the sauce for the meatballs. So I'm back here. Let me bring also my cutting board. I have my can of tomatoes, and then we'll talk about what I always tell you, the contraband. How do we make our kids eat more vegetables besides just the tomato sauce that has lycopene and everything, but we want more flavor, we want more things. So we're gonna add to the sauce as well some onion, some garlic, and if you are with no time and you come from work and you don't have time to chop this by hand, maybe you do like I'm gonna do now. Maybe we just use the blender. Or if you are fast and you can chop this by hand, then so be it. So let's give it a try. Let's chop by hand. We're gonna use half a bell pepper, red, green, the color that you have, doesn't matter. 1 carrot that you can also grate real quickly. 1 stack of celery, half onion, and I have here 4 cloves of garlic. So let's do it. Yes, the casserole will freeze very well. Pasta will freeze really, really well. And I like those ramekins because, yes, you have this personal portion. You can maybe, I think you could probably put them in those silicone muffin tins. I think that will be fabulous because you can freeze them and then you can take one at a time and reheat as you go. I think it's a great way to control also the portions. I love them actually. So let me wash my knife. Remember, we always talk about sanitation in these classes. So important. I have here my grater for the carrot, so it goes faster. But for the celery, the tomato, the onions, I kind of like them chopped. And you know that when you cut vegetables in different ways, you have always a different flavor. So an expression that we use in Latin America a lot is let's make a sofrito. A sofrito is basically garlic, onions. It's like is the Latin mirepoix of the French. The French call it mirepoix. We Latin people, we call it the sofrito. Every culture has its own mixture. I think in Louisiana they call them the Holy Trinity when they make gumbo. They use onions, celery, and bell peppers. So for the French, the mirepoix is actually onions, garlic, celery, and carrots. So we're gonna use that plus the bell pepper and garlic. So let's go back to our handy dandy cutting board. So let's start with the onion because, well, onions smell delicious when you put them in a pan. So we're adding to this tomato sauce more veggies, more nutrition, layers of nutrition. That's what we want to do for our children, you know. So when they get older, they're not all freaked out by flavors or by textures. I remember growing up and my mom saying, "Oh, your sister is a pain." You know, my mom had to blend everything, put everything in a blender for her to eat it because she couldn't eat anything that had a little bit of texture. Well, me on the other hand, golly, I ate everything. I still eat everything. I love food too much. But I love, you know, healthy food and food that gives me some nutritional value. I don't only eat just for eating. Although I really like anything. It's just that I try to kind of control some of the things that I eat. Otherwise, you know, too much of a thing is not a good thing. A little bit of olive oil, just a little splash. Let's put those onions. Ooh, how they sizzle. Nice. Okay, now let's add the celery. I'm gonna chop the celery. Let's move again. There you go. Again. Lengthwise. And let's go. Rock that knife. We can even add some mushrooms to this sauce if we wanted to do so, but I am not gonna do that. We're gonna keep each flavor on its own. And this part doesn't look very nice, so we're gonna discard. And you can go back and chop if you want a lot smaller. But I do like the chunks. I think it makes the sauce look fresher and nicer. And we're making this sofrito. And look how lovely it is. And it's given a lot of layers of flavor to the sauce. Again, any sauce, I really like to use bay leaves. So we're gonna put a few of those in here too. Layers of flavor. Some black pepper. Let's chop our garlic. And garlic just makes everything better. And you know, garlic and onions are one of those things that have a component called allicin. They help us fight bacteria and viruses. So some people call them the natural antibiotics. So they're great. And I love the flavor. Who doesn't like a garlic bread, huh? I love garlic bread. So any questions today? Everybody's super calm. Yeah, somebody's saying that she cannot cook without a sofrito. I cannot cook without a sofrito either. And let's keep moving this quickly. And because time is almost running out, I want to tell you that I really made one batch of all of these earlier. So I'm gonna show you the end product of the meatballs as well. I just want you to see the process that I go through just to create a really beautiful layer of flavor. And we're gonna put this back in the pot, let it cook for a little bit and develop flavor. We're gonna pour those tomatoes in there. Look how pretty. And we only have the carrot that needs to be grated. Definitely, you guys can go ahead and, use only the tomatoes and cook them in the pan, but you won't get this delicious flavor that you're gonna get of a nice, well-developed sauce in the pan, This is it. This is the truth. And let's open this can. And these tomatoes are very nice. They are already crushed, so you don't have to do anything to them. I have some beautiful herbs from my garden that we're gonna add to the sauce as well. Here. I'm gonna bring those meatballs from the oven. They should be nice. Always add a little bit of water so it has enough. I put some water here, just to make the sauce a little bit less viscous, because it's gonna still cook and reduce. So it's high there. I'm gonna bring the meatballs so you guys can see how they look like. Here are my mittens right there. Can you hear that sizzling? They look fabulous. So we're gonna drop those meatballs in the sauce. And yet it has all those beautiful juices. Please do not throw away those juices. I call those the yum yums, and the yum yums are delicious. They give so much flavor. Those little bits on the pan, that's flavor. So do not throw them away. You see, we're gonna let this develop flavor. For now, I'm gonna show you the final product, because this has been getting love for a while. Can you see how delicious? Thick sauce, red, full of veggies inside too. And the kids don't know a thing. So I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna get those English muffins, some basil leaves that I have here behind me from my garden. And we're gonna make an awesome sandwich and an awesome bowl of pasta. Real quick, I'll be back. And remember, when you buy your bread or your sandwich bread, English muffin, bagels, whatever you buy, make sure that it says whole grain, whole wheat. You want that. So look what I have here. Beautiful English muffin. And I'm gonna open it up with a serrated knife. Let's see if we can get the camera back down. And I have here a fresh piece of mozzarella. That's what I want my fat to be in. And I have some beautiful basil from my garden that I had to recover after the freezing. And let's put some of those beautiful balls in there. They're so tender now. And I highly recommend that when you make your meatballs, you let them get love. So we have 3 of those. And I would like to put some sauce in there because sauce makes things better. Just does, Oh, look at that. Isn't that fabulous? I think it's fantastic. And what I will do to this, well, I will have probably some sweet potatoes that are baked, my sweet potato fries. I think they're awesome. So let's cover this baby and see how it looks like. Look how cute is that, huh? Yeah, I think it looks very appetizing. Okay, let's put this one over here. Or I will do this. How about this? We have that meal sub, and then I have a bowl, a cup of fruit next to it. Isn't that a balanced meal? I think it is. And last but not least, I have here some of that pasta that I didn't add. Remember what I told you that I thought it was too much pasta for the sauce that we made for our noodle, tuna noodle casserole? Well, this is it. We saved a little bit because I'm a pasta lover, I have some Spanish and Italian heritage, and a girl gotta eat pasta. I love it. So let's put some of that delicious sauce. Look how thick and pretty. Yum. And it looks awesome. And one of the things that I recommend to when you're making any meatball or meatloaf is to use a mixture of meats, like not only beef, but maybe beef and pork, or beef and chicken, or beef and turkey. I think it's just better. And let's add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. How about that? And just simple like this. We don't need to make it too difficult. We can just some basil, fresh basil as well, just to get the same flavor profile. And there you have it. Tell me which kid wouldn't like something like this? I think anyone will eat this. Let's give it a try, okay? I think it's so good. I'm so excited. So let's grab and cut that meatball in half because it must be boiling. And grab a little bit of the pasta. They're super, super tender. Super delicious, by the way. And that little bit of oatmeal in there, it binds them together. I thank you all for being with me today, for the time we spent together talking about the 1960s and some of these dishes that were a staple of that decade that we still are making them now. but we are giving them a new spin and a new life in a better way, in a healthier way. Remember that decade started all the processed food that we are now trying to deal with in the year 2020 and forward. Many environmental causes now are just to slow down on that kind of eating. Also, in all the packaging that we've been using to produce all those meals. So let's think a little bit greener, a little bit healthier, and let's try to eat those meals, but with a better twist to it. Love you to all. See you next month with the 1960s and some other fun facts. And it's back to you, Sarah. And don't forget to please do the little survey for common threads. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chef Dubraska. I'm excited to make these recipes for my own family at home. And thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Again, in an effort to better understand the community they're serving, Common Threads does have a quick survey that's linked in the PowerPoint that's displayed right now. It just takes less than a minute to complete. If you could please do that for us. The link is in the chat as well, so please take the time and fill out this quick survey for Common Threads. Also, please follow them on social media for future events. Once again, please visit our website at hcpl.net to learn about all of our upcoming, and have a good evening, everybody.